Let's get one thing straight. Your career is not your identity. You're not defined by what job you have, what company you work for, what title you have, or the size of your paycheck. However, let's be honest, a lot of us spend a big chunk of our lives working. So while your career is not your identity, it deserves a certain level of your attention. Whether you like it or not, your career affects how you feel, how you show up in the world, and the experiences you have. It's the reason why questions like, what do you do for a living, have you feeling a sense of pride after answering them, or maybe feeling down and inadequate. As someone who has juggled multiple careers and paths, from software engineering to medicine and writing, at some point, I was also a web consultant for small and medium sized businesses, as well as an academic tutor for high school and university students. One thing I've come to learn about choosing a career is that it's not always about ambition. It's about alignment with your values, your lifestyle, and your capacity. And so if you've ever been wondering, how do I pick the right career for me, or did I choose wrong? This video is for you. In this video, we're going to talk about 5 things to consider when choosing or re-choosing a career. So let's get into it. I know there's a lot of advice out there and books and resources for how to pick a career path, but I've sort of put everything into a system of 5 things that I'd like for you to follow and consider in choosing your career. So these 5 things are the spark, the reality check, the cost, the regret, and the proclamation. And we're going to get into each of these points one by one. So first things first, the spark. What lights you up? I'm not talking about what looks good on paper, what your parents want, what society thinks you should do. I'm asking what lights you up. I want you to think back to a time in your life when you were doing something, saw someone doing something, and you were really drawn to it. And it made you feel something deep inside. And you said, yes, this is it. This is something I could spend the rest of my life doing. What exactly were you doing? What was the most exciting part? How did it make you feel? And what did you love about that thing? That right there is what I like to call the spark. Sometimes we're drawn to certain careers because of what they might represent, like prestige, stability, freedom. But when you can pinpoint the spark, the emotion, the thing that makes you drawn to a certain career, whether it was problem solving, creating, storytelling, you're well on your way to clarity in choosing a career. So for me, when I decided that I wanted to do medicine, it was mostly because growing up, I loved having conversations with my family doctor. I loved doing biology and learning so much about the human body and how it works and how it really is like a machine. Another thing that solidified my decision to pursue medicine was one time when I had a health crisis. As funny as it sounds, this is a true story. Even though at that moment I was terrified, I was intrigued by the process of the doctors like figuring out what was wrong with me. From hearing my symptoms, running tests, putting their heads together to figure out the diagnosis, the treatment plan, the medications, all of that stuff, it just really intrigued me. And for me, in those moments, I thought this is something that I want to do with my life, not just in terms of the problem solving and all of that, but seeing someone go from helplessness to health. I decided that this was a career that I could dedicate my life to. So for you, this might be something different, but I want you to think back to the things that give you that spark on the inside, the thing that made you say, this is it. That is your spark. So when choosing a career, look for the spark. And I know that this has the potential to sound like sunshine and rainbows, but it really helps when the thing that you spend a lot of your time doing is something that you're truly interested in, is something that truly lights you up from the inside. So when you're picking a career for yourself, look for the spark. The next thing to consider is the reality check. After you've found the spark, after you've gotten excited about this thing that you think that you want to do, it's now time to take off the rose-tinted glasses and actually have a feel of what it means to step into this career. The reason why the reality check is important is because for a lot of people, their first exposure into what they think is the career for them is from fictional places. For example, for a lot of medical professionals, it's from shows like Grey's Anatomy. For lawyers, it could be from shows like Suits. So what the reality check does is bridge the gap between what you've seen and what is the reality of that career. So some of the ways that you can get the reality check, very simply, number 1, reading. We're in the age of the internet. Go to Google, go to ChatGPT. Ask questions like, what does it mean to be this? What does it mean to be a lawyer? What does it take to be an accountant? or marketing specialist, a fashion designer. Find articles, journals, books to read about this career that you've chosen. Watch YouTube videos, especially those that give more behind the scenes and not just highlights of the career that you're interested in. TikTok is another great place to actually see day in the life videos, week in the life videos for people that are professionals in these careers that you're interested in. Volunteering and shadowing is another great way to actually dip your toes in the water and test out this field. For me, these were two things that I did when I decided that I wanted to be a medical doctor. I volunteered at a major hospital in my city for about 2 years and some months, and I also did some clinical shadowing for physicians in a local clinic close to me. And it just helped me see the day to day life, the good, the bad, the ugly, the stressful parts of the career that I had chosen for myself. Because let's face it, doesn't matter the career you pick, whether it looks like the most fun thing on the earth, it will also have boring and hard parts. And so the reason why you need to do the reality check is to save yourself from being blindsided or disappointed in the future. The next thing to consider after the reality check is the cost. The truth is, every career or every path you choose will ask something of you, whether it's time, energy, finances, or even relationships. And you have to be okay with the sacrifices you have to make. You have to ask yourself, am I willing to go through this process? Am I willing to make the sacrifices required to become this person or this professional or to do this thing or to have this career? You have to sit down and count the cost and consider if it's something that you have the capacity to do. One thing I also want you to consider in this process of counting the cost is the fact that time will pass. If your major concern is about how much time you have to give before you can step into this specific career that you've chosen, I want you to realize that the time will pass. When I was having second thoughts about pursuing medicine, mostly because of the rejections I had faced, I remember having this conversation with my friend and saying how I wasn't even sure if spending the next 4 or 5 years of my life in school would be worth it or if it was something I could give. And she said to me, the years will pass by anyways. You could either be a doctor after 4 years or not. You decide. I can't tell you how those words changed and rearranged my brain, but it definitely helped me solidify my decision to go ahead with returning to school and pursuing medicine. If time is a major concern of yours, just know the time will pass. What will you be when X amount of years elapse? Will you be that marketing professional? Will you be in this field that you've chosen? Or will you not? You decide. The next thing to consider is the regret. Now, for this test, I want you to do an exercise. Close your eyes and picture yourself 10 years from now. Imagine that you never pursued this career that you're thinking of choosing. How do you feel about that? How much is it bothering you? Are you experiencing a bit of regret? Are you fine with your decision? Or are you in between? One of the biggest things that actually drove my decision to finally return to school to pursue medicine was this regret test. I figured out that if I woke up when I was 40, I would not be okay with the fact that I never scratched this itch to study medicine. And my resolve was that I would rather live with saying that I tried rather than what if I tried. And I actually learned this from, surprisingly, the Cheetah Girls, I think part 3, One World, the one that they did in India. There was a song where some of the lyrics were, what if I don't try? What if I do? If I win, what would I lose? How can I learn to live wondering what if? And that song stuck with me for years. And believe it or not, it has guided so many of my decisions because I'm always thinking, what if I don't try? What if I do? So I want you to apply this same principle when it comes to choosing your career or re-choosing your career. If there's something that you already have your sights set on, what if you don't try? And what if you do? If you go down 10 years in the future and you never did this thing, how would you feel? Your present self might not have all the answers, but maybe your future self does. So ask that person. And finally, the last thing that I want to touch on is what I call the proclamation. This is rooted in a principle that I believe in wholeheartedly. And this principle is that closed mouths don't get fed. If there's a career that you're exploring, there's something you've decided already, you need to shout it out from the rooftop to anyone who cares to listen. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell your mentor, tell your classmates, Tell people in your community because you never know who holds the key to actually letting you in that door. You may know people who are already in that field. Talk to them. Actually get your reality check from them. And another side to this proclamation is also even just talking to people about you deciding what career to follow. Sometimes other people may have insights about you and your skills that you may not necessarily see, and they might be able to guide you in what might be the right path for the career that you should choose. And I'm also going to say that there should be a bit of wisdom in who you speak to and how you speak about these things. But the bottom line is sometimes clarity comes through conversations. So speak up. You're allowed to be curious about certain careers out loud. You just never know what one conversation might lead to. And that's it. Those are the 5 things that I want you to consider when choosing or re-choosing your career path. Now, I did mention that I would briefly state what I would do if I had a do-over in choosing my career. And to be honest, I have no regrets about the non conventional, non linear path I've taken in my career so far. The only thing I would say is that if I could go back in time, I would be a lot more intentional about the moves that I've made. So, for example, I would actually seek out more non traditional doctors and people in the medical field that have followed the non traditional path of either having a different career, having multiple interests, having long gap years, or things like that. Because a lot of the things I've had to figure out on my own in my non traditional path, I feel would have been so much easier if I had people who had walked this path before to guide me. The second thing I would do is I would probably focus more on health tech because this would have been a smoother integration of my 2 major skills and interests rather than doing things like fintech, transportation, e-commerce, and all of that while I was in the tech industry. Other than these 2 things, I don't think there's much that I would change about my career so far. But this video is not about me, it's about you and helping you choose the right career for you. If this video has helped you, I want you to also pay it forward by sending it to someone who is also in the middle of trying to figure out what career to choose. If you're finally in a place where you're satisfied with the career that you've chosen, please leave me a comment and tell me what helped you make this decision and how you've navigated it so far. And if you want more conversations like this, please like, comment, share, subscribe, all the stuff they tell you to say on YouTube. And I will see you in the next video. Bye.